All right, guys. So yesterday we focused on law of sines, and today I'm going to introduce to you law of cosines. And we're just going to do some of the basic problems, and then after that we'll get into some of the other more maybe difficult special case problems because there's always those. So today we're going to talk about what do you do if you don't have the information you need for law of sines. With law of sines, we talked about how you have to have that matching set. So if you have to have an angle and a side that has the same letter in order to set up law of sines correctly. If you do not have that, you cannot start your problem by law of cosines because you're missing a piece of what you would need for the proportion. So then we jump to law of cosines, and I wrote the law of cosines up here, and it looks like a lot, but I just want to talk to you a minute about how it's really not as bad as it seems. First of all three of these are the exact same formula with just the letters switched around, okay? So if you notice, if it starts with an a squared, and then it's equal to the other two sides squared, and then times cosine of a. So we kind of start and end with the same letter. And then if you jump down here we have a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine a. And if you jump down to the second one, you'll notice that since it's starting with the b squared, the a's and the b's are just switched out. Okay, same thing with the last one. So these are three different formulas that actually are just saying the same thing using three different sides. Okay. The other thing that you should notice is it's very similar. It starts by looking like the Pythagorean theorem, and then it has this a little bit extra part at the end, and that's what deals with the fact that it's not a right triangle. Okay, so let's just jump in to a problem where you have to start with law of cosines, and that would be something like this. If I gave you a is equal to 42.3 degrees, little b, lowercase b, is 12.9, and lowercase c is 15.4. So in this case, we do not have a matching set of information, and there's no way to get that matching set. We only have one letter or one angle, and so we can't use subtraction to find the third one. And we have two sides, but because it is not a right triangle, I cannot find the third side using the Pythagorean theorem. So this is where we have to use law of cosines, and we have to start with law of cosines. Now, with law of cosines, there are times where you do have to start with a certain piece of information. And, oh, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. Just kidding. Right now, we need to pick the law of cosines that works for what we have. And right now, this is the formula that fits the information that we have. Okay, so we're going to find lowercase or little side a. And so this is a lot of this is a lot of calculator work. Please be careful with your calculators. Use enough parentheses, but really we're going to just plug all of this into our calculator. So we've got 12.9 squared plus 15.4 squared minus 2 times 12.9 times 15.4 times cosine 42.3. Whew, and I am off the board. Let's try this again. Okay, so that again, you plug it into your calculator. If you plug all this in correctly, you should get a squared equals 109.7. And then remember, that's what a squared is equal to, so you have to take the square root. And we get a is equal to 10.474. Now remember, this is, you don't want to take that out. I rounded it just to write it on the board, but that should be saved in your calculator and you square root your answer. And so now we have the A, okay? So we have all three sides and we have one angle, and now we have to find another angle before we can subtract. Here's the part that I was talking about earlier that I was getting ahead of myself. When you need to find two angles and you've used the law of cosines, you need to remember this little note that I'm going to write here. And actually, I'm going to write it in red. So I usually write it in red, and it's red on my paper so I don't forget it. Okay, when you start with law of cosines and you have all of your sides now, and you're now going to find an angle, we're going to use law of sines to find the angle because that is the easier formula and the quicker formula. And now I have enough information, right, to set that up. I've got an angle A and a side A. So now I can set that up. You need to find the smallest angle first. Okay, and there's a reason behind that. You have to do that because you could make, it's kind of like an extraneous solution. If you find the angle that could have been the largest, you could end up with an error in your answer. So when we're starting with law of cosines and then we move to law of sines to find a missing angle, and we only have one angle, we're going to look for the smaller of the two. So in this case, we know the smaller of the two is going to be angle B because side B is 12.9, side C is 15.4, and so angle B, the angle opposite the smaller side, is going to be smaller than angle C because side C is bigger. So now that I've used law of cosines to find that missing A, now I can use my law of sines and just do, I can do sine 42.3 over 10.474 equals sine, and I want to know sine, the angle B, over 12.9. Can we say that, please? And so I have now this set up. Now I'm going to cross multiply. I need to divide both sides by 10.474. Now, hopefully yesterday in the homework, you noticed that if you are solving for an angle, you actually have to use your inverse button on your calculator. And so if you do inverse sine of all of this, you end up with a B value 56.0 degrees. Okay, and you probably should have more decimals. I don't have my calculator sitting here with me right now, so we'll go with that. And now I have two of my angles. I know all of the angles in a triangle add up to 180, so I can do 180 minus 56 minus 42.3, and that means my angle C is 81.7 degrees. Okay, so we have, hold on please, we have this answer, and this answer. Okay, all right, so there is an example of law of cosines. Again, if you're solving for an angle and you have two options, you want to go with the smaller one. I am going to put one more example of law of cosines up so you can see how to find the, sorry, that was my dog freaking out over a squirrel, so that you can see how to find an angle from this, okay?